Outlaw Sports is brought to you by Molson Canadian, made from Canada, and Rocky Mountain Barbecue, Alberta barbecue cuisine at its best. Grant, I was going to ask you, and I did ask you this last week, and you kind of gave me a dirty look. You, like I was out of my mind.
I often do.
Yeah. Sidney Crosby, I said, is there a Sidney Crosby rule in this league? And you said no. And then I'm going, why is everybody on his case then? Everybody is.
Now they are, yeah. I mean,
but this guy was the face of the NHL franchise.
He still should be. Why are we all crapping on this guy?
That's what I'm saying.
Now, your question last week are there separate rules for Sidney Crosby? Do people kind of back off a little bit? I mean, Don Cherry's now bashing Sidney. This Sid bashing is going on. You got John Tortorella. Who else? Craig Berube was on some radio station. And then Mike Milbury was on a Philly station going on and on. To me, it's unfair to the guy. Here's a guy that's had neck and concussion injuries, rough couple of seasons. He's the best player in the world. Can't we lay off this guy a little bit? All-star players. I mean, remember Wayne Gretzky in the 80s, you know, we're whiner. Why do we dump on the best? Is it a Canadian thing? Like, do the Americans do that to
absolutely they do.
They don't do it as much.
Well, you just named a bunch of Americans.
You mean announcers?
Yeah.
But they're talking about Canadian.
Yeah.
But you don't see it that much. You don't see Americans crapping on Kobe Bryant that much, do you? You don't see the Americans crapping on Brett Favre or great players. They admire them. They can criticize. That's not to say about criticizing. Right?
Oh, okay.
But to call a star player a whiner and all this kind of stuff, to me, it's demeaning and it's uncalled for. Criticize his play, but to me, this Sid bashing is really unfortunate, and I think it's classless for a guy like Tortorella to do that. Or does he really mean it, or is he setting things up for the playoffs?
Sure he is.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. And so is Craig Berube.
Well, Don Cherry's not.
Yeah.
Don Cherry's not, and Mike Milbury shouldn't be either. To me, it's classless for a broadcaster or a coach to go on the air and bash the stars. They should be held in high esteem, especially Sidney for what he's been through.
Right. What else do you got there? What else do you want to get off your chest this week?
Jason Spezza.
Yes.
Last year when Ottawa was going in the dumps, everybody's saying they should trade this guy should retire. Remember Spezza maybe in the last year in the offseason, we're saying maybe, is that for you?
I'm not here.
Yeah. I'll pick up the milk on the way home, I promise. I told my wife not to call.
She calls me all the time. You're not alone.
I just want to give credit to a guy who was crapped on and people thought was going to be traded away with maybe to Calgary. Jason Spezza, 4th overall in scoring after the regular season, 34 goals, resurrected himself. I think he's one of the best bounce-back players of the NHL this past season. I want to give him credit. I think he's a quality guy. I think he's the guy you want on your team. You want a Scott Hartnell for that personality and craziness, but you want classy guys, good hockey players like Jason Spezza. So I hope Ottawa can do well because of guys like Jason Spezza.
Grant, I was going to ask you, we talked about Brent Sutter. Would he be retained here as the head coach? All kinds of rumors. I mean, it basically comes down to Murray Edwards making a decision. And last week, I was listening to the Fan 960, and Mike Keenan was on there.
Yeah,
and it was one of the most bizarre yet most entertaining interviews I'd heard on the Fan, and quite frankly surprised that someone was bashing the Flames on their home radio
Mike
station.
Keenan called to say, I want to come on your radio show, which is unheard of. It wasn't like they called Mike Keenan and said, you want to be a guest?
Yeah.
So he had something to get off his chest.
And he did.
But come on, how long has he been gone now? 3 years, and he's still pissed off the Flames fired him? Mike, you're 60 years old, whatever you are, get over it. I mean, I was a little saying, Mike, I mean, come on, move on. You've got a career going with Sportsnet. You've been paid by the Flames long.
Take the high road, eh?
Yeah. I mean, he said that Darryl Sutter told him, I'm letting you go because the ownership and president want me to fire you.
Yeah.
He said, I take Darryl at his word. So, But who cares? The organization wanted you out anyways. Probably Jerome McGinley wanted him out, and that's why he's gone.
Yeah, but don't you think it's funny? And he was going on about you know, we'd heard so many rumors about Phaneuf, and he said, and he was kind of indicated that they shouldn't have traded Phaneuf, but Phaneuf and Regier having the feud and the big fights and all that kind of stuff. And it's just interesting to hear somebody drag it up. And of course, his big point, Grant. Well, I made the playoffs twice, and they haven't made the playoffs since I've been here.
Anytime I hear a coach, someone keeps on, and the Sutters do this too, like Brent Sutter said recently, I know a thing or two about winning. Why do you put your I? The Sutters always do that. You know, it's all about me. And I think Keenan was doing the same thing too. You know, Bowman came back and he won. I can do it. Mike Keenan wants to get back into the NHL. He's made that very, very clear. He doesn't think it's going to happen, but he's trying to promote himself. I think he's doing a better job on TV now, most recently, too, than he did a year ago. But I was a little surprised that he would kind of bash the Flames organization, take the high road out. He did say that Jerome McGinley is like Mark Messier on the ice, but not a strong leader in the dressing room. He did admit that, too. And that's what we've all said. And I think that we all maybe are overly critical of Jerome for not being the other guy. I think it's time maybe the Flames should have got somebody to counter Jerome. Like
You've said that all along, even in the Olympics, counter to Sidney Crosby, right?
Just let him play hockey and be that leader on the ice.
Yeah.
We haven't talked much about what the Flames should do. I guess we did last week. We said about Brent Sutter. To me, it doesn't matter if they rehire Brent Sutter right now.
I'd like to see him get another shot at it.
Yeah, why not?
He hasn't had.
But is that a major concern right now with the Flames? Does a coach come back? I mean, if Brent Sutter comes back and it's the same old team, who cares? To me, I want to see, if he comes back with those younger players, I think Brent Sutter would be okay coach. So to me, to bring him back for another year or two, I think is okay. But not with the same kind of players, but with some younger players that he could mold into be a better team. Now, Brent Sutter doesn't just want to come back. He has said publicly, I'll come back if certain things or certain number of my questions are answered. In other words, I think he wants things to happen, and I bet it would be certain players gone. Is it Jerome McGinley? Don't know. But Brent Sutter will only come back if certain criteria are met.
Well, there were those earlier rumors this year about those two kind of butting heads a little bit.
Well, I think all coaches have butt heads with Jerome because, as we've said ad nauseum right here in Outlaws, that they want him to change, do things on the ice that are different, and he refuses to. He's not going to do that. He's going to be Jerome McGinley.
Do you think the Edmonton Oilers are going to get rid of Tom Renney?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Because
I do. I think, to me, I've heard the logical candidate is the guy who's been coaching their farm team in Oklahoma, Nelson. I heard he's going to be coming up, so I think he's out. Tom Renney has that shelf life. Was Vancouver, the Rangers, now Edmonton.
Yeah.
What, 2-3 years?
I always thought he was good with kids, you know, going back to the Olympic program or the national program. And so, but maybe.
I just find it amazing that most teams keep coaches for 2 or 3 years, except Buffalo and Nashville. What is the difference there that other teams don't do? Like, why do they keep coaches for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years or more? Other teams keep coaches 2, 3, or 4. It's an amazing thing. I should talk to some GMs about that.
Well, that is interesting, and it could be the character of those two people. It could be the character of Lindy Ruff and Trotz.
Yeah, but you often hear people say, hockey people say, sometimes you need a different voice.
Yeah.
That what they say, you know, falls on deaf ears by the athletes. Well, why doesn't that happen in Nashville and in Buffalo?
They were certainly talking about it last year in Buffalo.
Thinking out loud, as I often do.
Yeah, and answering yourself, which is scary.
When it comes to your health, don't take chances. Get all the right information and guidance you need from the Healthy Hut in Cochrane. Be confident in your choices for creating and maintaining a healthy body. For more info, log on to thehealthyhut.ca.